Fortnite Season 3 is coming at breakneck speed. From the Battle Pass to the deep lore, I've put together everything you need to know about the upcoming season. Like I mentioned in my previous videos, a lot of sources were predicting the trajectory of Chapter 7 before it even launched, but the rumors surrounding Season 3 and its Symbiote theme really caught my eye. Honestly, it's a bit of a curveball, because when you look at where we are right now, the map, the current plot, and the overall direction of the season, there aren't any obvious signs of a shift towards symbiotes. That said, I've noticed a few things that are already starting to stand out. Right now, we're witnessing a pretty brutal power struggle between the Ice King's forces and the Foundation's team. Even though the Ice King seems to be leading the narrative for now, everything suggests that the Foundation's team will ultimately come out on top regardless of the current score. We're seeing plenty of hints about this, specifically in the Lady Windfrost loading screen, which I want to take a closer look at. In that image, the King's castle is completely leveled. This will likely happen once the Infinity Blade returns to the game. When the castle falls, the King's prisoners will finally be set free. One of those prisoners is Captain America. You might wonder what Cap has to do with a symbiote theme, but knowing Fortnite, it's easy to imagine a symbiotic version of him if that's the direction we're headed. My first theory is that Cap will act as our bridge into the next season. We know how much weight collaborations carry, just look at the Chapter 6 finale. So it's very possible Cap will be the one to stop Voyager and trigger a new chain of events. Moving on to the symbiotes themselves, my second theory is that they'll arrive from space, which is their signature style. What's interesting is that the island already has references to this. Near Studio, there's a collection of props for a movie called Pillions, featuring those creepy, peely aliens. Maybe it's just me, but they look an awful lot like symbiotic bananas. I have a feeling this biome and the mountain of alien attack references aren't just a coincidence. The symbiotes might already be here on the island. It's just a theory for now, but it would be incredible to see a symbiotic peeless uprising actually happen. My final theory is that we might leave this island behind entirely. It's a real possibility, especially when you think back to the wilder seasons where Epic prepared something massive, like a dedicated symbiote world. While it feels like a long shot, it's hard not to hope for it, especially with Voyager doing everything possible to harness the 0 point. No one knows what happens once it's fully collected, but it could trigger an even worse disaster or act as a beacon for the King in Black himself, Knull. So why is he called the King in Black? Well, because he is the literal god of every symbiote in existence. Knull was around long before the universe even began, waging a lonely war against the light and creating symbiotes along with all kinds of other nightmare fuel. He's the one who forged the Necrosword, the same weapon that gave Gore the God Butcher his powers. And in the latest comics, he's been putting heavy hitters like Sentry and Thor to the test. Let's just say they didn't pass the vibe check. It's been a long time since I've been this hyped about a character, but Knull is just too good to ignore. He's an incredibly charming yet insanely powerful force of nature. And today I'm going to break down the sheer power of the symbiote god, starting with where he came from. Before the universe was a thing, there was only the void, an endless abyss ruled by Knull. He was just drifting through that nothingness without a care in the world until the Celestials showed up and ruined his peace. They started building the universe, creating worlds, and filling them with life, which Knull found absolutely offensive. He tried to take them out, and even managed to decapitate one, but he eventually had to retreat. He realized he needed a weapon that could actually kill beings on that scale, so he forged all black the Necrosword, the ultimate weapon of darkness. He used the severed head of that dead Celestial as a forge to charge the blade with cosmic energy, making it the very first symbiote. Because he used a white-hot forge and a massive hammer to build it, that trauma is the exact reason why symbiotes are still terrified of fire and loud noises to this day. Knull didn't stop there. He crafted himself some high-tier symbiote armor and began a literal campaign of genocide against the gods, becoming a legend of pure terror. Early on, he figured out he could summon symbiote dragons directly from the void to wipe out any sign of life. These dragons are way stronger than the symbiotes we're used to. They can kill gods, they're highly resistant to fire and sound, and they're fast enough to keep up with the Silver Surfer, meaning they move dozens of times faster than the speed of light. They can sprout blades and spikes from their bodies and even breathe fire. These dragons terrorized the cosmos for millions of years, eventually reaching the Milky Way and even Earth, where they became the inspiration for all those old human myths about monsters. Knull eventually realized that dragons wouldn't be enough to wipe out all life, so he kept experimenting with darkness and created the symbiotes we know today, along with their home planet, Clintar. As their numbers grew, he developed a mental hive mind connection with them. In the beginning, he could only control a few dragons, but eventually, he was the brain behind thousands of symbiotes at once. That connection actually ended up being his downfall, because the symbiotes eventually rebelled and locked their own creator in the center of the planet Clintar. After being locked away for centuries, Knull finally broke free and turned his captors into a fresh army of dragons. He even infected the Celestials themselves with the Living Abyss, turning them into his own puppets. Now, wearing a white predator mask, he's headed for Earth to bring every other symbiote back under his thumb and finish his war against the light. When you look at his power scale, he makes Gore look like a joke. He can pull supernatural darkness from the void to create an infinite army, or multiple necroswords that can gut Thor. He's strong enough to decapitate a Celestial with one swing and famously rip the Sentry in half. That's a massive deal because Sentry is basically Marvel's Superman, and he's the one who ripped Knull's son Carnage in half years ago. Knull is essentially immortal and has been around for over 13 billion years, making him the oldest villain in Marvel history. He doesn't need food, water, or sleep, and he can fight for billions of years without catching a breath. His only real weakness is the light of life held by other cosmic beings. One funny thing though, even though Knull is technically stronger than Gore, the Silver Surfer managed to beat Knull by creating a sun. So maybe, just maybe, we'll be searching for some kind of source to deal with him. But that's a theory for the future. For now, let's get back to what's happening on the island. While all eyes are on the 0-point shard, let me do a quick recap of what went down and forget the fan service and the parade of collabs. It's like the story just took a hard left, and suddenly, it feels like we've landed in a parallel universe. For real. After the defeat of the Dark Presence, the 0-point shard broke free. It restored Oninoshima, sent our teammates back to their own realities, and it felt like a happy ending, right? Villain defeated, the island saved, everyone splits. But here's the kicker. For 8 straight years, we were guinea pigs, carefully watched, and had our strings pulled by someone. And now they're done messing around, because their plan just hit Phase 2. After the 0-hour event, the Chapter 7 teaser dropped, showing a bunch of flashbacks from old Fortnite. But at some point, someone seemed to hack the recording, and we got a message in the form of cubic runes. So, the last reality is back. Wait up though, they never actually left. The message translation says they first showed up not in Chapter 2, and not even in Chapter 1 when the purple cube appeared on the island. Turns out, the last reality has been watching us since the start of the Battle Royale. 8 years, 9 weeks, 3 days. They call this whole time the training period, if you can believe it. In that time, they've analyzed 928,560,000,000,000 hours of matches. That's all the Fortnite game time over 8 years. Bottom line, they know us better than we know ourselves, and can predict our moves not just one step ahead, but for decades. Luckily, using my creator code is a whole lot faster. But the last reality made one huge miscalculation. The Dark Presence was just another test for us, a kind of protocol to see how we'd handle that situation. But then, an anomaly happened that shouldn't have. The red cube, which Jonesy straight up pulled from a OG like it was nothing. It feels like even the last reality didn't know about it, which means a new, uncontrolled variable just entered the equation. Maybe there's a force out there we don't know about yet, and this force is so legit, it can mess with space and time. Remember back in OG Season 5 when the Red Kevin the Cube emerged from the rift, changing the rift's behavior and all the runes. For weeks, this cube rolled across the OG island, leaving behind those wicked red runes. Every so often, the moon would change colors from red to finally settle on purple, and the same thing happened to the bunker. Eventually, the red cube slid into Loot Lake. But what's the big deal with all this? Over the last 3 OG seasons, the descriptions for the Visitor, my favorite drift, and all other skins all contain the word unknown, which highlights how important the unknown reality, where the OG island is located, really is. Strangely enough, Kevin's island reverted to its original purple color in Season 6. That's because the red rift energy was moved beneath the island, reaching the 0 Point's core. This led to the red Kevin the Cube showing up during the Butterfly event. However, before that happened, a whisper of the Titans echoed from the bunker. I think this was a nod to the Dark Presence, a Titan we were about to fight. It's a pretty big deal because the word on the street is that the red butterfly was sent to the OG reality by none other than the Dark Presence way back in Season 4. But the Dark Presence was actually used by someone even darker to send that butterfly. This brings us to the Butterfly event, which, just like 6 years ago, started with the cube exploding. This time though, after visiting the in-between, the red cube was still there. If you look closer, you can see it turned several of the dimensional lines red, and even weirder, energy pulsed out from the 0 Point's core through them, unlike the others. For those who don't know, the in-between is a separate dimension inside the 0 Point. The lines you see are the existing realities, and this dimension is one giant circle connecting every single reality to the 0 Point as its core. This tells us that the red cube is responsible for messing with several realities. So, how did the cube get to the in-between? My guess is that the cube somehow duplicated itself while entering Loot Lake, creating two versions, one purple and one red. Then, less than a week before the biggest event in Fortnite history, the 0 Hour, the red cube that appeared during the event is 100% from the OG reality, which perfectly explains the Titans and 0 Hour messages encoded in Morse code. But there's one question left. How did Jonesy know the red cube existed? Honestly, I don't think he knew at all. All he wanted was to teleport the old purple Kevin he remembered from Chapter 1. However, all the changes in the current OG reality led to the new red cube being brought in. Despite its different look, it got the job done and ended the Dark Presence. Since the OG Battle Passes dropped, almost every season has had hints about something called the Unknown. In each season, a character had dialogue about it. Drift said we should seek the unknown, and Lynx tells us to check out what the unknown has to offer, and investigate your unknown surroundings. Overall, Lynx's introduction brought us closer to solving the mystery of what the unknown is. We now have 100% confirmation that it's closely tied to the last reality. Let's move on to the Visitor. Since the start of Chapter 7, we've known that his NPC would return to the Battle Royale island after many years, and instead of his original skin, it would be the Visitor from OG mode. I don't trust him one bit, because he was most likely manipulated by the last reality. There are two possibilities. Either the last reality has full control over him, or they're secretly using him for their sinister plans. The same kind of plans the Ice King has tucked away. This also means that none of the character we met in OG are the same one we remember. They are completely different versions of them. As Chapter 7 began, it became clear that the last reality controlled every little detail of Fortnite's story until the defeat of the Dark Presence, calling it all the learning phase. And that's our key to knowing the whole truth about OG mode. The last reality has been messing with the 0 Point from the very start. This year's storyline is easily some of the best Fortnite lore we've ever seen, because it mashes up awesome characters with a massive all-out war between two sides and an omniverse invasion. I'm betting my last V-Buck this is all leading to a wild finale event that'll be worth the hype, so let me break down what you need to know. At the beginning of Chapter 7, a Dark Voyager ship known as the Dark Harvester began wreaking havoc across the island. Its primary mission was to collect 0 Point fragments in order to rebuild it. But that's easier said than done, so this cube guy teams up with the Ice King, who is basically the heavy hitter of the Fortnite Omniverse and can freeze anyone no matter what reality they're from. To shut them down, Hope and Jones teamed up with the Order. The Seven are basically the Avengers of Fortnite fighting for multiversal freedom, but the group split up years ago. The Order puts out a call that brings back the Visitor, but he isn't the guy she remembers. Still, he joins the squad, and the four of them go looking for their leader, the Foundation, who was stuck like a popsicle in the Ice King's castle. Luckily, his tracker and heat suit let him break out, which kicked off a massive revenge war between Team Foundation and Team Ice King. That's the vibe as Season 2 kicks off, and every character has a clear side they're repping. On the Seven side, the Visitor is obviously ride or die for the Foundation though. He admits he and the Order don't exactly see eye to eye yet. The Order says she trusts the leader, but isn't vibing with the Visitor either, though she knows he's got her back. She's also stoked to have Hope on the team, who showed up with Jones. Speaking of Jones, he's always acting like he's doing the heavy lifting while we do all the actual work. If you talk to Jones in the actual game, he mentions the Visitor has a boss, which is a big deal for later. To get the scoop on the Foundation side, we talk to Jules from the Elite, who used to be tight with Dasha from the other camp. The Elite are interesting because even though they seem like they're helping the Seven, they don't actually take sides. They just want the best of the best, and honestly think the Ice King and Foundation are too emotional to make the cut. The Foundation says the Ice King's whole deal is protecting reality from dangerous relics, which is exactly what the Ice King used to say back in the day. The big mystery is why he's teaming up with the Voyager now. He probably knows the 0 point is like a ticking time bomb if the wrong people grab it, and I think the missions for the Ice side will give us the answer. His squad includes the Ice Queen, who is his right hand, and even though she's not here yet, we know she's part of the royal family. Then there's Dasha, who we thought was with the Ice King, but she's actually a former Imagined Order worker, who just hates the Seven as much as everyone else at her old job did. She's a free agent right now, and even breaks the fourth wall like Deadpool, acting like she knows someone is literally writing her story. The Ice King's biggest allies are the Squibble Society, who are all over the island running shops. The most interesting one is a squid who absolutely despises Fishstick and wants him gone. He joined the Ice King because he was promised enough power to finally take out that intruder Fishstick, which the Ice King thought was hilarious. These two are basically the comic relief of the season, even though they're rivals. Fishstick is his usual goofy self, and doesn't even recognize the squids, probably because he's a bit of a space cadet, or maybe because of that 0 point memory loss stuff from the comics. He even mentions wanting to visit the squids, which would probably end in him getting deleted. The real road to the finale is the Ice King's missions, where he has us bugging the Seven, the Elite, and the Voyager. He's likely keeping the Voyager close just to jump him and take the 0 point once it's fixed, so he can keep it safe his way. Listening to the wiretaps, the Foundation wants to take out the Ice King, while the Order focuses on the Voyager. The Voyager's recording shows he's just a pawn for a bigger boss in the last reality army, which could be the Cube Queen, or maybe even Gino, the big bad Fortnite has been teasing for 7 years. The Elite recordings show Jules and Zaddy are worried about a threat that's likely Gino's crew, especially with the new arena mode. There's even a loading screen showing the Elite fighting Lexa in a spot with the Gino-related Oathbound logo. Back on the Seven's side, the Foundation has us scouting the map and grabbing his gear so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. We also have to sabotage the Ice King's castle, so he can't spy on the island anymore. While the leaders are duking it out, the Voyager is still collecting fragments in the background, like he's playing a different game entirely. We're only 3 weeks into the season, but we're already hearing cryptic logs about the original Seven members, like the Imagined, and the origin being victims of the Chrome.
Password: Sanctuary. Access granted. Welcome to the Seven Secure Audio Server. Now decrypting. Status reports of all 7 members.
It's still early days, but I'll be covering every bit of this crazy story as it drops. It looks like this whole season is going to be focused on 2 major things: getting the 0 point back in action, and rounding up the 7. There's one big ice-cold wildcard though, and that's the Ice King, who's going to be throwing serious wrenches in the works. Data miners have already dropped the scoop that we're getting a full-blown, huge event at the end of the season, which is June 5th. The fact that the season wraps up on a Friday, when we usually get a seriously massive event, is another major hint. Plus, there are a ton of clues pointing to an absolute cinematic blowout. I could totally break down all those story bits, so smash that like button if you're down for it.